what am I going to do if my back's against the wall? Am I going to show everybody I'm going to cower out? So one of the biggest things I had said at that point was like, hey man, this might take me, but it's going to take me on my feet. I'm not, be vulgar about it, but I'm like, I'm not going to go out like a bitch. That was my mindset, so to speak, right? Poor choice of words, but that was my mindset.
Right. It's real. It's
real, right? It was very raw. And so at that moment, it was like, okay, cool. And during that first 30 days, because I was in the hospital for 30 straight days, they were just whipping my ass.
Welcome to Broken Perspective Podcast, where we challenge beliefs, learn from others, and aim to be better people. My name is Colby.
And my name is Jeff. And today we're going to be talking about navigating life's unexpected events.
Sometimes life will hit you with an overwhelming obstacle, one that will put your life on a path that you could never expect. How you respond is the pivotal action that will set the course. Today we have the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Michael Cunningham, a husband, father of 4, a coach, and a community leader. Michael is here today to share with us a little bit about his experience in navigating life's unexpected moments. But before we do, Jeff, tell me what we're drinking.
Today we're going to be sipping on a little taco truck.
Good choice. It's a really good choice.
Yeah. I think it's out of Elk Grove and Turlock, I believe.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
That's right. A little Dust Bowl.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Little Dust Bowl brewing.
Oh, beer by the mic.
I have no experience in drinking beer.
False.
None at all. None at all. Man, what is it with every time we have a new person, or was that something new? Fucking up the pour.
Fucking up the pour.
I don't know. That's good head right there. I don't know what to tell you.
That's what I said first episode.
I said second. I think Kozak said third. Cheers.
Oh, man. All right. Let's get this, bring it back.
That is tasty.
All right. Hard part's over. So, first of all, thank you for coming, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's kind of a cool environment you guys have here, and it's a pleasure to kind of be a part of it and talk about different things that are going on in the world, right? And with people that are battling challenges and some good and bad and ugly and everything in between. So it's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're absolutely excited to have you. Before we get into your, your monumental obstacle or event, can you tell us a little bit about, how things are going now?
Good. Like you guys mentioned, I've been coaching football and, being a part of a community and just being a dad and all that kind of stuff for sure all my life. Jeff, you've known me for a very long time, and
sixth grade, right?
Yeah, sixth grade, dude. It's crazy to think about. And I was a young father coming out of high school. I was a knucklehead, and I had to learn some life challenges really early on, and it was great. I had a partner, my wife Demelza, that kind of put me on a straight and narrow, and we had a family really, really young. So I've been a father for a very long time, and a husband for a very long time. And the cool part about it is, like, just my life experiences from a young man, playing college football, playing, in high school, growing up with you guys and all that kind of stuff, and started diving into the father thing. And we moved to Rockland. We're all from Carmichael, and I figured, I wanted a better area at the time. We grew up in a place like Rockland. Carmichael was very similar to Rockland back in the day, and, moved up into this area and decided to start raising our family here. And I dove deep into the Rockland atmosphere, so to speak, right?
Easy to do.
Between Little League and Little Football and high school football at the same time, even though my kids weren't there, I had passion in coaching. And then, been in the financial industry doing, mortgage sales for a very long time, and transitioned over to kind of a cool job where I became an account rep for BSN Sports, where I just, the things I do most, which is deal with coaches and admin and things like that, and started selling equipment and started doing that kind of stuff. Just took a break from the financial up and down of the last 25 years of my career. So it's kind of cool. The last 3 years I've been doing that. Prior to my diagnosis and stuff, I took that role on and then got hit in the mouth, but doing well. I'm a father of 4. I have an oldest I know, it's crazy. I used to have locks of hair. Not really.
Kids will do that to you.
Yeah, no doubt. My sons for sure. They added to that.
Nice.
My oldest is 27. Recently just got married last year in July.
Congrats.
Yeah, it's pretty rad, man. Pretty rad. She was the focal point of the family that started my whole journey of becoming a father. And I was very young. I was 19 when I had her. And she's a rock star. She graduated at San Diego State, speech pathology, went to Redlands right after that, got her master's, and she's an SLP, which is a speech pathologist therapy for elementary school kids with all the defects of speech and all the kind of different things and IEPs that are out there. She does that, and she got married to an awesome young man who was an RN who actually in college was battling brain cancer.
Oh, wow.
And in that journey that he went through, he decided that, he switched gears from being a doctor said, I wanted to be a frontline caregiver, like a nurse that I got. So he became a RN. Incredible disposition for a young kid to have to deal with that kind of stuff at like the age of 18. And even, I get choked up talking about it, but like his journey was quite impressive for a young man to be dealt with that. But then their journey together, she was a freshman, they met. And I'm like, whoa, she was telling me the story about this guy she started to meet and date. And I'm like, whoa, as a father, you're concerned because you're like, man, I don't want to see you go through so much pain yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you're so young. But God has great intentions and an incredible plan. And they stuck it out through that entire journey. And they got married last year. So it was pretty awesome. I have another one. Cheyenne is my second oldest daughter. She's an absolute rock star. As you know. She went to she graduated at Rockland High School. She was a softball player, very competitive. She got into sports med type stuff. So she was on the sidelines taping ankles when I was coaching. And she went to the University of Alabama. She got like a 50% academic scholarship, which is rad because all my kids are really smart and I have no idea where they got it from. Not me, definitely Demelza and mothers, yeah. And she wanted to be an RN. Yeah. She got to graduate early, actually. She did Alabama in 3 years, and she chose a different path, leaving Alabama and went to Grand Canyon University on an accelerated program so she could become a nurse faster. Which I was like, man, just chill, enjoy college. Which, by the way, the SEC is completely different than out here.
Right.
Oh, I'm talking about the South. I encourage your kids to go to the South. It was an incredible experience for her to witness, the Southern atmosphere for colleges, between Alabama, Tennessee, and all that kind of stuff. It's just, it's a different environment. And I highly encourage parents out there to kind of go and check that out because what we think is college in California and so even Idaho and et cetera in Oregon doesn't.
What about Montana?
And we'll get there too. Yeah. So she's doing great. She graduates in December as an RN with 2 degrees. I'm just like, again,
awesome.
I'm like, wow. And then my oldest son, Mikey, he graduated in the class of 2025. Very high achieving player at Rockland and a good student. And he was able to pick up a scholarship through the University of Montana Tech, where he's studying to be a geological engineer. Again,
nice.
What am I doing? An incredible football player, incredible leader.
Competitor. Just the competitor.
It's insane. I mean, he got the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame, as well as the Rockland Hall of Fame for football, which, everybody's like, yeah, you're a coach. Did you, how'd that impact, you coaching your kid? I'm like, I didn't. I always tried to kind of separate myself from him. So if he was a sophomore, I would coach freshman or varsity. If he was on varsity, I was coach at JV, just so I can kind of let him create his own path and beyond create his own path. I mean, Coach Jason Adams, he'll tell you straight up what kind of guy Mikey was. He was just a different breed. And so he's at University of Montana. He was a redshirt last year. He'll be a freshman this year. I just got an update that he's now he's a number 1 right now in certain packages and the kickoff return number 1. And so he's like
crushing it.
He's starting to do his thing, right? And so I wasn't sure because it's in Butte, Montana, and Butte, Montana is a different place on earth than what these kids are used to out here in California. And then Mason is my youngest, and he's a junior, going to be a senior this year. Again, very similar to me when I was growing up. He's kind of that big meat-headed, but an incredible loving kid and a hardworking kid and one of the most genuine, out of the bunch. He's definitely filled full of heart and stuff like that. So he's on a young journey getting ready, and he wants to try to play on at the next level if he can. And
football or baseball?
He actually, he is a baseball player, but we had a tough conversation the other day, and he kind of flipped the script on me and said he wanted to kind of go for more football than, because he is a really good baseball player. Right. He's a left-handed pitcher, so I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool, right? And he's, all of a sudden he's started to come into his own size-wise. He's getting big.
Yeah, he's bigger than Mikey was.
Oh yeah, big time. And, he's about to be a 5'11", 195-pound kid going into his senior year, possibly 200 pounds. And he's like, Dad, I can move. And I'm like, yeah, you can. Right. So he's going to probably try to go that route. We'll see. That journey is very difficult for kids. I always tell people, just coaching wise, it's not an easy, thing. And it's not, you can be good and still not make it. And it's just one of those deals. But, adversity is something that he's been dealt with some injuries that he's had, and he's had to grow up kind of quick and see how the world is not fair. And so he's battled through that, and he kind of sees it and understands that journey it's not easy, and he wants to go on and take that challenge on. And he's a really smart kid too. So we'll see how it goes. But the kids are doing great, and
family's awesome, right? Family's crushing it. You're crushing it.
That's the legacy we're here for.
So, but obviously we brought you on for a different reason, to discuss some different things. So, I guess, when did you first feel that something may not be right health-wise? Yeah. So again, kind of rolling it back, I've been coaching football at Rockland for 10 years, right? This is crazy to think about. I've been in the community and all that kind of stuff. Been, going through life just like anybody else, working, grinding, coaching, diving into more than I probably should, just because you're, like my perspective in things is always to be engaged in the community, right? Totally. Thomas Jefferson said it best, governance only happens best when it's closest to its people. And one of the things that I see is that, you could bitch about your community or you could be a part of your community's success. And then obviously that goes from, just being a part of your community or whatever, but I dove mine into the kind of the youth aspect of it. We grew up in a really cool area where we had a park and rec, and everybody was involved in that park and rec. And one of the things I've noticed in our society is that kind of started to dissipate. When we got up here to Rockland, and it was kind of cool. I came up to Rockland, and then Jeff was right behind us, and then another buddy, Eric, came right behind that. And what I started to see is like, there's a lot of similarities. Let's dive into this. So the youth aspect of it, been coaching, all that kind of stuff, grinding, being a part of our community. And it was the 2024 season. Actually, it was 2023 season. And we were doing really well. This was just an incredible year. 2 classes, 23 class and 24 class and 25 class. My oldest son, Mikey's class, are kicking butt, dude. They're doing great. They're doing really good. They're highly pushing on the door of championships, etc. We ended up going to the playoffs and rolling through playoffs. During this time, I started to feel kind of fatigued. I was sitting there kind of like, I'm 44 at the time, and I'm sitting there going like, working my butt off, whatever. Crush a Red Bull, get your shit together. You're fat and out of shape. You go to the gym more, right? Right. More coffee, more Red Bull, that type of deal. And started really kind of like, all right, dude, this is starting annoying me. Maybe I'd eat a sandwich, like a turkey sandwich, and next thing you know, I feel like I'm bloated or I'm falling asleep at like 10 a.m. I'm like, what's going on? Right. So I'm like, dude, maybe it's gluten, or maybe it's like, maybe it's time for the TRT, Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, cold plunge, like Joe Rogan.
Anything. Yeah. Right.
Or just doing the Google or web thing where you're like,
right. I'm like, hey, like it says this and whatever. So I go and push it off a little bit, go see the doctor, and he's like, hey, let's try this. And then I finally go get my blood work done. And this was like, I don't know, this is a week prior to Thanksgiving week, right? Which we had, at that point, we made the championship for the section, and that week leading up. So got my blood work done. And so we have the championship game. They're calling me left and right. I'm kind of like, what's going on? They're like, hey, dude, we need you to take another blood test. Oh, yours is kind of abnormal. We don't understand what's going on. So just take another blood test. Took another blood test. And they're calling kind of in a panic, like, can you go see your doctor and let's talk to this because there's some massive anomalies going on with your blood. And let me explain what that means. So when you do a BPC or blood panel, you got your white blood cells, your hemoglobin, your red blood cells. There's all kinds of measurements on this kind of stuff, right? Well, there's a CMV and a CHV or whatever. These are two molecule things that they look at in your blood. And essentially it shows that it's super elevated at this point. And my white blood cells are crashing. My red blood cells are crashing. My hemoglobin's crashing. So I'm not producing anything, no blood.
Right.
So my doctor's kind of in a panic and he goes, I think you have aplastic anemia. And I'm like,
what's that?
What's that? You know what I mean? Like, and so he's like, well, it's essentially bone marrow failure. And I'm like, whoa. And he's like, yeah, dude, maybe 5 years. I'm like, what? Wait, time out. What are we doing here? So I go in a tailspin, right? I knew I'm sick. Okay. We knew I was sick, but I had to go through a lot more. So I got referred to oncology, which when I heard oncology, I knew that, okay, where I'm going down something, down a road that is not favorable. Obviously we hear oncology and we know what that means. And so I did a meeting with Dr. Kiwan. He's currently my doctor. And I heard that name and I was in a panic at that point because 10 years prior to that, one of my best friends, Jason Cruz, he actually had something similar where all of a sudden he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Burkitt's, and he got the same doctor. And it was a bad situation. So when I knew his name.
So it's like when you know the name because you're kind of dealing with the best of the best.
Yeah.
It brings more concern.
Yeah. The alarm bells just started firing. Meanwhile, I'm still coaching, right?
So this diagnosis came really fast, though. It wasn't like you were left in the dark for a period of time or anything.
Well, and the reason why I wasn't left in the dark and everything became like, domino effect was the fact that my body was shutting down. Yeah. And what I mean by that is not being able to produce any red blood cells. And, you get to a point where you start getting blood transfusions if you don't hit a certain mark, like on the number wise, right? And I was really close to knocking on that door. My wife's in the medical emergency industry, and we have really good friends. And the chief of staff at Sutter Roseville Emergency was looking at my deal, and he's like, okay, you don't need a blood transfusion just yet, but like something's going on, Mike. And I'm like, I'm not a professional in that realm, but I can tell you right now, you're not in good shape. Something's up.
So right at this point, you're feeling super fatigued.
Yeah.
You're getting scary news.
Yeah.
But they still don't quite know what's going on.
No, I mean, scary news is one thing. I got like, horrific news later on, right?
Right.
And again, within a matter of days and weeks, right? This is like you said, this was not something that was drawn out. And they were like, oh, by the way, we're going to do this test.
Right.
So I get a call and say, hey, we want you to come down because we want to kind of rule out or rule in aplastic anemia and see if you are in bone marrow failure. And I'm like, okay. And worst part anybody can do, and I'm going to tell you guys this out there in the world, don't Google anything at this point, right? Because it's a total death sentence. Everything is, right? So don't do that. Save yourself that time. Be patient and be calm. But I ended up going to see Dr. Kiwan physically, right? And he says, okay, we're going to do a bone marrow biopsy. And man, that might be it is the most painful thing I've ever gone through in my life. It's where they essentially take a corkscrew and they hand crank into your lower back and your hip bone with no anesthesia. And the reason why they do no anesthesia sounds like some medieval shit, which it is because they got to aspirate the bone marrow itself. Right. And it's such a quick thing. And the bone itself is such a cool organ that once you puncture it, and they call aspirate, boom, and then you're out, it seals, right? So it's almost one of those things where it's like, we're not going to knock you out for a 9-minute deal.
Gotcha.
But it's going to be 9 minutes.
9 minutes of excruciating
the most painful thing.
Crazy, right?
Jeez.
So they do that. We play in the NorCal championship, right? We lose, but it was great because we won the section championship, and then we played an incredible Grant team at the time. Right. I'm celebrating, but my family and people around me close are like,
something's still not like
we knew something was wrong. We didn't know what the diagnosis was, but we knew it was dire.
When you talk about the we, it's like obviously it's some close people. Like, what did the family know?
So the family knew that I was dealing with a potential, something catastrophic in relation to my body's ability to create blood cells. Cancer has been thrown out there a little bit.
Right.
But at this point, no one knows exactly what we're talking about.
You're just kind of doing blood work, feeling fatigue, and doing the bone marrow, which is obviously excruciating painful, but they don't put people through that nonchalantly.
Yeah, they're not going to do a bone marrow biopsy unless they know something's wrong and they're just trying to identify what it is.
Gotcha.
So I actually go through that weekend. And people knew. During Thanksgiving, for example, I'm at a friend of ours' house. We're doing card games after Thanksgiving type deal, and at the O'Haron's house, and you know me, I'm a very energetic guy. Let's do some shots or let's have some fun and say, get rowdy, whatever. Let me be part of the party. And I'm in the corner like this, just falling asleep. And they're like, dude, what is up? And they're like,
acting like the 70-year-old right now.
Right. And so people at this point are like, hey man, like what's going on? Right.
Right.
And I told some of you guys that something's going on, and people were showing up to the game because they knew, hey man, something's not going on. People were kind of being supportive, but then like tripping out that I'm kind of in a bad situation, not sure what's going on. 3 days after my bone marrow biopsy, I get a call from actual Dr. Keewan. It wasn't a staff member. It wasn't nothing. It was December 13th, 2023. All hell broke loose.
What stands out the most from that phone call?
Well, I think anybody that gets a diagnosis of cancer is, no matter what it is, even if it's cancer, they're like, hey, it's melanoma, or you caught it super early, or whatever it is. You hear that word, right? Mm-hmm. Then you get kind of like...
Right, we all know people who, we've all lost people.
Right. And we know people have gone through it too. But when it's given to you, like the physical response is absolute shock, right? It's absolute shock. It's almost like a betrayal feeling, so to speak. Like, how'd my body fail me?
Start asking the why questions.
That starts to come a little bit later. It's like, it's more like how, right? At this point, it's how. Like, how is this possible? How'd this happen? I'm 45. I know things happen, right? So at this moment, I'm kind of like I hear he's like, it's bad. But then it's the things that he's saying is actually starting to resonate. I hate to tell you this, but you have one of the most aggressive leukemias in the world. And I'm like, time out.
Wait, I like aggressiveness, but not in this.
Like, time out. Did you say leukemia?
Yeah.
Because we hear cancer, right? And growing up, this is kind of a full circle thing. Growing up, I lived in Portola when I was very, very young. And there was a young kid that I knew really well who got childhood leukemia in the 80s, right? Mm-hmm. And it was a death sentence.
Yeah.
And he died. And I remember like hearing the word leukemia and going, wait a minute. Like that was a brutal, like learning experience, even as a kid, but then knowing what leukemia, and then there's cancer, and then they're blended, obviously. But at the same time, I'm like, leukemia and cancer, I thought they're different, but they're not. They're the same thing. It's just hemoglobin or blood versus the other. So in this process, my wife's kind of eyes are lit up, and, I'm trying to keep my composure, and I'm like, so what do I do? And he's like, well, I need you to come down today, and I need you to pack a bag for the next week, because we got to start your chemotherapy today. And I'm kind of like, I didn't mow the lawn yet. I didn't take the trash out. My garage is a mess.
Right.
I got shit to do. I got work. I got time out. Like, I'm not ready for this. Like,
is this the time that you received a timeline, or was that a little bit?
This is literally like the phone call, right? Telling me what I had, and then a brief, like, this is what I need you to do. And when I say like the stress that you get from a professional voice, meaning a doctor that does this on a daily basis, when you hear the sincerity, and there's kind of a language barrier with Dr. Keewan, right? He's kind of, he's Lebanese, and he's a beautiful man, but you're kind of like, what'd you say? Like, there's but the level of seriousness that comes off a tone.
Yeah.
And then you're getting that.
You almost don't like it. You're like, why are you talking so serious, man?
Yeah. And he kept apologizing.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh.
I think there's some, oh, go ahead.
Does your kids at this point know what's going on with you?
They know I'm in bad shape. They don't know what it is.
So getting this news, thinking of your kids, like what's going on in your mind there? Could imagine that's a whirlwind of emotions.
That's like that's the one emotion in this process I still can't escape. Damn, we're already in the middle of this. And here we are. All right. So yeah. First, looking at my wife, who is one of the best human beings I've ever met. Trying to look at her, watch her try to console me, and then get to the point of like rapid planning, right? It might have been like the most blender of emotions that one could go through in a moment, right? I'm sure, and you've been a police officer for a very long time, when, you know, you're talking to a family member and they had just found out they had lost somebody, or, you know, horrific crime or something like that, right? I can imagine that's kind of like some of the same process mentally that those type of people go through. So for me, it was kind of like 1,000 pounds landed on top of my shoulders, and I'm like, okay. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, the walls are closing in. And I just kind of got up and I said, okay. She said, well, I'm gonna get the kids out of school. And this at the time, my daughter's at Alabama. My other daughters were now working in LA, and my sons are a freshman and a junior. So she's like, I'm going to pull the kids out, and then, you know, we got to figure out, pack your bag, blah, blah. And, you know, she's going right to like, okay, you know, which is great. She didn't go to, you know, flight. She went to fight.
She's taking action.
Yep. You know, at the same time, she was trying to, you know, it was happening so fast, I don't think she ever got a chance to truly, you know, start to process it from a spouse perspective. So I got up though. I said, hey, I need a second. I'm gonna start to walk. I'm gonna take a quick walk. I have to like it's caving in at this point, right? So I get up, I walk out of the house. I'm angry, you know. What the fuck? And I'm walking. I'm a spiritual person. So at that moment, I had that conversation with God. Damn, I didn't realize it was going to be this emotional. I said, I apologize. Because you start to self-reflect, like, ow. Okay, I wasn't even sure yet, by the way, like how bad this was.
Right.
But I was given some information that where it was like, all right. And then I made the mistake where I said, don't Google. And I threw Google out there.
We all
and
do
I'm like,
it though.
Yeah.
I was basically at that moment like, well, I'm a dead man. And so I started to apologize to God rather than why me type deal. Is more like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't better. I'm sorry I didn't lean on you more. I'm sorry I had doubts. But then I asked, I said, you know, and I live by this mantra now, but I asked her, I said, look, I'm not going to beg you for my life. You know, I'm going to just ask you for the opportunity to fight and try to make some rights. You know what I mean? And what that meant was like, I had given every of my emotion to him at that point. And it just, you had to release at some point. Like I had to release. And so as I'm in my process of doing that, and I came to that concept of where I was, I recentered myself immediately right there. And I said, I actually trusted the outcome no matter what it was at that point. Because I am spiritual and I am faithful. And I was ashamed to ask for something that I had never giving him other things, right? That, you know, we all have challenges for. And I had never, hey, help me recenter myself, Lord. Get me to the right path I need to be on. It was always controlled on my aspect of it. Like, hey, I'm going to control this. Well, I, at that point, completely surrendered. And I made phone calls. I called D, right? He's like my brother. We were in shock. I called Jason Adams, who was currently the football coach at Rockland. And it was basically like, hey, I need you to get my sons through high school.
How hard was it to say that?
I think I get emotional about it because it sometimes takes people traumatic events to see how precious, you know, life and family are. And that fear of not being able to see some milestones, or how is this going to disrupt them?
Right. Yeah, that absolutely would have been on my mind. It's like,
this isn't fair to them, right?
Right.
As it's not fair to a lot of people to have to go through these things, especially kids, you know. But, you know, I did. That was very difficult. And, you know, he was blown away. He's a really good friend of mine. And he knew the impact that, you know, this was going to have on my family, but other families, right? Because I'm a coach and I have a lot of friends and, you know, all that kind of stuff. He was very gracious. And he said, I got you, but you got this. I got you, but you got this. And then I called Tim Sloan, who is a really cool, you know, collected human being that just has a big heart, quiet assassin. When I call quiet assassins, meaning that he's just a guy that can get things done type deal. And, you know, he knows the family really well. And I just said, hey, you know, do me a favor. Just, you know, you're close to us. Keep an eye out on my boys. They have a lot of respect for you type deal. And Demelza, et cetera. And at that moment, you know, I'm packing my bag. The boys come home from school. And I break the news to them, which they're kind of like, you know, confused. And
yeah, they don't even know what half that stuff means, probably. No. They're like,
they knew it was cancer.
They knew it's big, and they
knew it was bad. And they're like, are you going to survive this, Dad? And I'm like, I have no choice to try. You guys know me. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to fight my ass off for you guys. And, you know, but I need it's time for you guys to like step in a new realm that you shouldn't right now, but you have to. I need you to be the man, Mike. Right. I need you to be supportive of your brother, Mason. And I need you guys to show others that in the mix of all this, that you guys will hold your composure and you will still push us because it's our family, it's our name.
Right.
You'll push us through the next stage. And it's going to be hard. I want you to, know, just basically like, because I wasn't sure if I was coming back, coming back to the house, pet my dog, all that kind of stuff, packed a bag. I'm calling my daughters on the phone, which is even worse because they're like, they're my rocks. And so having that conversation and just brutal, absolutely brutal for human beings to have those type of conversations. Initially, right? I think it's just rough. So that was the diagnosis call, and I apologize for being so emotional on that. It's actually been a minute since I've talked through it.
It's good.
No apologies needed, my man.
Appreciate it.
And then, like I said, pack the bag. Right. At this point, people were communicating with each other, and panic was starting. I called my parents, obviously. My mom, my dad passed away of cancer. So again, a lot of stuff resonating in that moment. Just kind of like letting everybody know this is what the journey. I don't even know the journey yet, really. I just know that I'm going to go on one.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And, we're jumped in the car about 3:00 in the afternoon. By the time I've got my wit to say, let's go, knuckle up. We're driving. And I just apologizing to the wife.
Yeah.
So December 13th, 2023, I always say is the day it lives in infamy in my household. And then getting there, and Dr. Kiwan, man, to do this on a daily basis, I don't know how people can, give this kind of information out, right? And when I say give this information out, like I walked into his office, right? And, I've been there before, but I walk in his office, and you're in the waiting room, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, there's like 12 people in here.
Who else is getting this same news?
Or going through their treatments or going through it, right? So at that moment, I'm like, well, fucking woe's me. You know what I mean? Like, people have choices, right? Even in their last days. Like, how are you going to accept something that's coming at you, right? And again, I still don't even know at this point, like, what my odds or none of this stuff are. But I know I was going into that moment, like I told you spiritually, where I'm like, well, I've surrendered it all. So at this point, I'm like, let's get after it. Like,
right.
What kind of damage can I cause? Like, where am I going to do this? So I go into the back end of the meeting with him and his nurse, and, he kind of lays it all out there. And the first thing he starts with is like, you're going to need a bone marrow biopsy, more than likely, 90% sure you're going to need a bone marrow biopsy or a transplant. And I'm like, can you walk me through this? He says, okay, essentially you had a corroded cell in your body that's lived dormant. And they won't come out and say this. Even him, he kind of had to backpedal a little bit. And I know this is going to be controversial to a lot of people out there, but they truly believe that, or I believe now looking at everything and putting it all together. And again, I'm not a scientist, and he kind of hinted to this without saying it, but he truly believes COVID has popped a lot of this cancer that's going on in people right now. Not necessarily like caused it, but it's caused what people don't realize. I was diagnosed with, and again, sorry, I was diagnosed with AML, acute myeloid leukemia. Okay. And essentially what it is a blood cancer where what happened was there was a corroded cell that lived dormant, right? It's abnormal. It just kind of died, but not died. It just went to sleep, right? And when a lot of people have leukemia or something like that, there's an adverse reaction in the body, whether it's autoimmune driven or some of that nature that causes it to ignite, basically. And COVID, if you looked at it, like, I want to say, and I might could be statistics are off, but like last I heard, it was like AML's gone up 300% since COVID.
Yeah.
And you're like, and it's more common, by the way, in people over 65 years of age, right? So it's very rare that younger folks get it. And the reason why is because the immune system tends to react differently as you get older. And so when I say react, meaning that if you got the common flu or you got a really bad virus, your immune system at our age typically doesn't overreact, right? Well, if I never got no vaccines or anything like that, or boosters or anything like that, you know me, I'm not that guy, right? But I got more than likely got COVID, right? The immune system is reacting differently to COVID than it did to a lot of other your normal viruses, your flus and all that. Cause it's like, what is this? And so it gets really, really excited. And I think that's the theory behind it is it potentially popped it. Now I was exposed to a chemical a long time ago that caused the abnormal cell. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is once that cell ignites, it essentially starts to multiply and it shuts down the ability it attacks healthy cells. Right. So when they brought me in, that meeting I had, he had explained to me that 92% of my cells were cancer.
Jeez.
And you're like, so here we go. Let's start stacking all the things on the door. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, well, this isn't good. Like, you're telling me I have 8% good left in me, right? Like my cell phone's dying. How do I have a chance, Doc? And he says, I'm going to put your life through hell. I'm going to put you through hell, but I am going to do my best to save your life. And I'm like, well, if you're willing to rock it, I'm willing to rock it, and we're going to, get after it. And I was admitted that day. And I can't speak enough about the Sutter bone marrow transplant unit. These are like incredible nurses, men and female.
and the doctor staff and the support staff that clean your damn rooms, that feed you, I mean, dude, we have a fucked up health system, but the people that are in it, best in the world, without a doubt. And so that journey started that night. And I remember, I had floods and floods of people coming in my room, right? And I'm evaluating this. And at this point, he says, I asked him, I said, so if I don't do anything, like, if I just kick back, like, how long? He's like, you got 2 weeks left to live. And I was like, like, wait, like, I know you're going to disrupt it, right? And we know that, but like, to hear 2 weeks, like, that's just a crazy,
right,
so to speak, death sentence, right? Mm-hmm. You're just kind of like, how do I like process that? And that journey started right there. That journey started.
Motivated you though, hearing that though.
Yeah, well, to
fight.
Yeah, what motivated me was his confidence, right? The doctor's confidence, so to speak. I read him really well, and he was not one that he's like, no, I'm going to try to save your life. And then he looked at me and, and I'm like, I'm going to save your life. And I'm like, because he's looking at my wife and he sees what's going on. I'm like, I hope you do. And I'm like, and I'm going to be a patient, and I will be a patient. And I'm not that guy, guys. Like, I'm a calculated, not patient person. And I'm like, I know the outcomes, and I pre-design things to go somewhat what I think could happen, right? So I don't put myself in situations that I can't see some of the outcomes. Yeah. So this is an unnatural occurrence.
So you're surrendering to two entities simultaneously.
Yes.
You're surrendering to God and your faith, and you're surrendering to this doctor. Like, I will do whatever you tell me to.
Yeah. And again, here's the crazy part, guys. Like, when you look at it, I didn't even have enough time for a second opinion, right?
Right.
Like, I could have been like, well, hold on, I'm in denial. Like, I'm going to go call Stanford. I'm going to go call, cool. I am looking through the phone book. I'm bleeding out of my eyes and dying. Yeah. Because that's the ultimate way you go down. And I'm like, dude. So that journey started. And basically what that regiment looked like, right, was they put me on a 7-day chemo blitz where I received chemotherapy for 23 hours a day. And then I received for 3 days, one chemotherapy for 15 minutes that they call Red Devil. It is one of the most potent chemotherapies on the planet. They had to do heart scans and all this other stuff just to see if my body would even survive it.
Wow.
And the idea behind what they're doing in that process is they're taking my cells at 92 and other people are less. And they're trying to get me down to 5% or less. And that's what they consider to be in remission. Now, remission, people are like, oh, remission. And I'm like, yeah, but with my situation, remission just meant that I pushed it back. And the genome, because again, this is like some crazy science that didn't look like science to me. It looked like calligraphy and Arabic and whatever, right on the walls, an equation. But my genome would essentially just allow that cancer to reform itself, even after I kill it down. So the only way to kill it is to kill the source. Well, dude, how do you kill your blood source? Well, everything comes from the body, all your red blood cells, white blood cells, bone marrow, right? Your bone marrow is what produces your blood. So when they explain that they're going to eliminate my ability to create bone marrow, in my head, I'm like, well, how do I even survive that?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to try to find a match. We're going to try to find a match, and then we're going to jumpstart the body, and hopefully it works. And I'm like,
hopefully.
Dude, there's so many like variables, right, that are coming at me from a scientific standpoint, which I look, here's the deal. I paid enough attention in school to understand how all of this system works, right? But there was a lot of things where I'm like, you didn't think, I didn't think it either. I didn't think it either, but it was like one of those things where like that movie Lucy where things were unlocking in my head.
How do I know this
remember
stuff?
that? ¿Cómo estás? Oh. But there was a lot of variables that started just like, it became one of those, like it was a giggle to me where I'm like, dude, all right. Like I'm on for the fight, right?
Yeah.
And so I started that process, and there was a day, like 2 or 3 days into this thing, where my wife's like, you got to come down here and check this out. And I knew they were doing something, but I didn't know what was going on. And so the bedroom window or the hallway window looks out at Sutter's Fort in downtown Sacramento. And I look down, dude, and there's a sea of people wearing blue, rocking blue, past players, families, etc.
Wow.
Those are like the shots of humility and encouragement that people need when they're going through that kind of stuff, right? And so that was like another kick, like, dude, I have to do this, right? I've talked about adversity as a coach till I'm blue in the face. What are you going to do when your back's against the wall? What am I going to do when my back's against the wall? Am I going to show everybody I'm going to cower out? So one of the biggest things I had said at that point was like, hey, man, this might take me, but it's going to take me on my feet. I'm not, be vulgar about it, but I'm like, I'm not going to go out like a bitch. That was my mindset, so to speak, right? Poor choice of words, but that was my mindset.
Right. It's real.
It's real, right? It was very raw. And so at that moment, it was like, okay, cool. And during that first 30 days, because I was in the hospital for 30 straight days, they were just whipping my ass. And in that process, they were like, man, we got to get him to 5%. And the first round didn't work. It got me to 7. And so he was like, if I give him another round of this, I'm killing him. So we're going to try an experimental thing that I've never done before. And he used basically some chemotherapy that older folks use that doesn't attack them as hard. It's like, I need 2%, right? I think my body was on a trajectory of killing it. It was going down. So like this added amount. But the success rate drops out of the floor when that happens too. So I'm sitting there going, all right, here we go, another stacked door. Yeah. And so for me, it was like, all right, we're just kicking down barriers, right? It's a forward lean process at this moment. It's like, dude, what are you putting in front of me? And I don't give a shit. I'm going to run through it. But it was very difficult, right? It was very difficult. And again, what do I mean by difficult is you're sitting there daily, right? And your wife has to leave. And I did tell her, go home. But then you're sitting in you're stewing in your own thoughts like, okay, it went from how to why. How'd this happen to more like, why is this happening? Right? I'm waiting for the joke. Like I'm waiting for someone to come in like, psych, we got it wrong. That's a sick joke. But every day was more of a reality, right? And so those moments you're sitting there going like, all right, well, the how is irrelevant because it just happens to people. And the why is because at that moment, because I surrendered to all of it, why not?
Right.
Like, why not me? Like, maybe I am the one, maybe I'm the one that needs to get this for our community. Maybe I'm the one that needs to get this for my family and keep the bug off everybody. Like, the negative spiritual bullshit. Like this, let's go. I'll take this shit. You know what I mean? And I came to that mindset, like, put it on, let's go, put it in the backpack and I'll carry it. Like, that was the only thing I could think of like, all right, well, if I'm going to live by this mindset of I've surrendered it and I'm not going to like, let this take me without like, of course we have fear, but I'm not going to let it eat my soul about it. You know what I mean? I'm not going to cower down to it.
So in those 30 days where you're in the hospital, I imagine there's some dark moments. Do you mind, sharing with us what are some of the darkest moments that you went through in that time?
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot actually, when I didn't get that first initial 5%, they had to hit me again, and it did. It almost took me out of the game. I went to like what I call the spiritual world. Like it was like it was divine, and I've told the story to some folks, and I'll share it with you guys. But I was in a delirium situation, right, where I was in and out of consciousness for probably like a good 23, 24 hours, like legitimately, like come to like in a panic and then right back out. Some could say it was a combination of the drugs that I was on, and some could say that like, okay, it was my body, doing whatever it could to fight its last breath type deal. Mm-hmm. And I was in bed, and I kept going to this place where it was very like, I don't know, imagine being April mindset or February mindset where the clouds were almost like a storm, where it was like almost like a bluish, dark blue cloud, still a little bit of light out there. I'm in a desert field, weird plants, and these gigantic soldiers in like gold and navy garb armor, like we're talking Roman looking things, right? And they were nailing armor on me. And so let's play devil's advocate here. Subconsciously, you know what I mean? I was being spiritual at the time, reading a lot about scripture and the ideas of fighting, you know, and fighting a battle. But then the other side of it is like, no, man, it was the prayers. It was my one request in the very beginning when I asked, just give me an opportunity to fight. I don't know. Was that my spiritual gift of like, well, let me get some angels on your side. Let me, this isn't going to be easy, you know, but like, if you're really giving this up, we'll fight with you type deal. Right. That was kind of how I felt. And, you know, and again, I'm coming out of this like bad 3 days, and all of a sudden I came completely awake. But even in the darkest moments, like I celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary in the hospital. My kids opened up their Christmas presents in my hospital room when I'm laying in bed going in and out of conscience. Dad, we got you a Dak Prescott jersey. You know, did it come with interceptions?
You're such a big fan of Dak Prescott. I mean, you love the Cowboys, but I've never heard you say anything positive about him.
And then, you know, the darkest moment about all that, even though you're like, hey, you're going to die, or you know, this and all, the darkest moment was knowing I couldn't leave. I was literally trapped there, you know, and my family was gone, and they would go home, and they were supposed to go home, right? Their life has to continue to go on too. But I was like, man, like every day started to seem dismal and dark. But the community refused to let it get dark in a lot of ways. I had visitors. Dude, I had people come see me that I hadn't seen since high school, dude. It was pretty profound, you know what I mean? And it recentered my actual thought process too. Like how awesome humanity can actually be. Like I was I wouldn't say like negative, but I was also very like, man, the world sucks.
Yeah.
Right. And with this whole process, or in that process, I started to realize that we're a product. The world is a product in which we allow to create, we create, right? That we allow to exist. Like it doesn't have to suck. It is a mindset beyond belief of what your circumstances and what your world looks like. It's complete mindset. And we're conditioned by media. We're conditioned by, you know, social media. We're conditioned by, you know, secular culture. We're conditioned by all of it. It sucks. It's supposed to suck. It's entertainment. No. I was enlightened by how many awesome human beings exist that I maybe didn't even pay attention to, right? I didn't even know what my status was. Like, you know, I felt like I had friends. You guys were all there, but then all of a sudden people that I hadn't seen are reaching out and all that kind of stuff, right? And I was blown away by that, you know, and that was such a refreshing, like, again, kick into the right direction of why I needed to continue to fight harder and even more so. So that 30 days, man, then I started putting in the earbuds. Like my blood numbers were not coming back great either, right? And you have to get to certain levels before they actually say, okay, go home, because you get a chance to go home before your transplant. But mine weren't hitting those numbers. But like my doctors, and then when I say doctors, these doctors would come in with a team, pharmacists, all these different people. They would be, you know, like you see in the movies, right? They'd all walk in at the same time, and I could hear them down the hall, and I'd be like, and I'd hear them down the hall, and I'd bounce up, throw a shirt on, throw my hat on, and fire up the music. It was 7 a.m. Like I'm like, as soon as these dudes leave, I'm gonna jump back in his bed. I'm tired of shit.
Yeah.
But I was showing them that I'm not taking, and I stopped taking all their pain meds. So don't give me any more of those. Maybe at night we can do that when I go to bed. But like, I know I needed the body to understand it was in a fight. And I think that a lot of people that are in that moment of darkness, they start to numb themselves and they can't fight. And that's when you start seeing some negative. That was my mindset, right? So I was like, I want to go cold turkey on no meds. If I'm sick, I'm going to throw up. I don't care. Like I'm going, like we're going. And there is a thing called nadir after 7 days after chemotherapy. You go through a really bad, like side effect of chemotherapy. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it, but you get the esophagus starts to shed, right?
Yeah.
Shed skin, and you get the thing called mucositis, and there's all this like shit that goes on, sores in your mouth, that, you know, because like your immune system shot. But then once my white blood cells started to come back, it goes away. But he decided, he was like, look, I'm going to send you home. And these nurses are like looking over, because I'm not in a situation where my white blood cells are a wreck.
Yeah.
And I think you need to be home mentally. Like, you're different. You know, I know you're a wreck right now, and like, you just got to stay away from people, so to speak. So I went home, and dude, my white blood cells finally took off, right? I did go septic, and I had to go back to the hospital, which sucked. That almost took me out of the game too.
Jeez.
So I was there for a week dealing with that. And then did a round of, they call it consolidation chemo. And then I was told that they found a match, a bone marrow match. So, you know, I didn't want to take away every one of your questions, but
you're rolling through everything really well.
Yeah.
So that was the first 30 days, the diagnosis, the plan, the emotional roller coaster that started at that moment. And then there were some false notions that like, oh, I'm good, right? My white blood cells are recovering. They got it down to 0. I'm in remission. But then I'm reminded by him, like, yeah, but you still need a bone marrow transplant in order to survive. And I'm like, this is crazy, right? So at this moment, you know, I'm like blown away and like, okay, we're right back to the, you know, we got to go through it. And I got it. So here's the crazy part. Like, so in this whole mix, you're learning about your transplant, you're learning about everything, right? And I ended up getting the news of like how good this transplant was. And he was like, look, your DNA and his DNA match so close that it's almost like a spitting image, so to speak, right? I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, this is the closest match I've had in a while. It was a 1 in 40 million chance that when I say our DNA is connected, it was almost like if you weren't a trained, you know, biologist or chemist or anything like that, you would not be able to tell if there was a difference between our DNA.
Wow.
And so it was a 12 out of 12, which is a measurement they use for viability of a donor. And then a 1 in 40 million chance with our DNA, the way it connected. And these things all matter because when you go through a transplant, you go through that process, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But then you also get what's called after effects, right? So you have what's called graft versus host disease and all this kind of stuff that can go bad and go wrong, where basically your body and his body don't communicate. So I get the news, April 18th is going to be the date. So I go in about 9 days prior, right? And then they start whipping my ass with more chemo to kill my bone marrow, to kill an organ in your body. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there going, oh, so you already got it? And they're like, no, he goes in 3 days prior to giving it to you. And I'm like, but you're going to actively kill my bone marrow. What if he backs out? Right. And I have no ability to create blood cells. Well, we'll keep you alive until we find you another donor.
It's a scary thought.
But it's never happened.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, but you haven't met me. Shit happens to me all the time. Look what's going on here. Like, you know, you're like, you know, you start to doubt a little bit of the trust stuff.
100%. Do you, or how much can you speak on what the donor has to go through in that process?
Yeah. So good question. So there's a group that used to be called Be the Match. It's now NMDP. For the life of me, I always try to remember what nationally, whatever, bone marrow. But for the most part, people don't realize that they're not drilling into your bones to take your bone marrow. It is actually a stem cell, so to speak, right? So they pull your, like a plasma out of your body, right? The cells, the stem cells out of your body. And so they sit there for probably about a good 4 hours, 5 hours. And it looks like they're in like a, you know, a transplant machine where it's just taking their blood, filtering it, you know, and all that kind of stuff. they take some drugs that can make them a little bit uncomfortable, like in the long bones, because that's where your bone marrow is created, is in your long bones. It's like a factory. So like there's some pain there because it's overproducing at that point. It's kind of like a couple days they have to take off work, and then they got to go to the clinic, and they fly them out, and they pay for them to stay and a buddy to stay with them or whatnot. And then they pull the bone marrow from him. Meanwhile, I'm getting my treatment, killing my bone marrow. And then they rush it, basically just like a heart transplant. They put it in a bag, put it on ice, get it on an aircraft, and send it directly to me. That person comes curries it over. They do one wash in Arizona with the blood. And then they put it back on the plane, send it right over to me, and it's rushed over to me, and then they hang it and start going to town. And I'm like, just like a normal transplant, like pretty wild.
Right. What can go wrong?
A lot of things.
Right. I mean, with all those moving parts,
yeah,
it's incredible to sit there and.
A lot of things can go wrong, meaning that, your body rejects it.
Right.
Right. There's, it's funny, like as they were killing my bone marrow, and like I had just received the last few doses of like chemotherapy in that day. My nurse was in there and my wife was in there, and we're talking. All of a sudden I get the chills, like, like a flu chills.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start shaking. And I'm like, to the point of like it's not a seizure because I'm like, conscious, but I'm like, I can't get a hold of anything. Like, and I'm like, I couldn't stop the shivering. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there going like that. And my nurse looks over and he's like looking at my heart rate and he's like, ooh. And I'm like looking over and I'm like, kind of at this point now, I kind of understand like, daily blood pressures, heart rates, all the different things going on. So I kind of understand. I look up and my heart rate was like 168. And he's like, Mike, I got to get you to calm down a little bit if you can. He's like, because we're really knocking on the door of cardiac arrest. And I'm like, I can't control this. Like I'm squeezing to try to see if I can grab the muscles, right? Your just natural reaction is just like, okay. And I couldn't do it. And I'm looking over and DeMel's panicking, like kind of looking at me, and he's on the phone. And there's a thing called rigors, right? And it's what happens when like your body just kind of goes into convulsions. What the doctor thought, because I asked him later on, I'm like, dude, what was that? And he was like, well, I think it was the last few of your actual cells fighting for life. And I'm like, wow, that sucked. Yeah. I like that. Let's not do it. So this whole team comes in for your bone marrow transplant, right? Everybody's garbed up, like head to toe. Your doctor's there. There's another doctor there. There's 2 nurses there and like a pharmacist. And you're like, oh, okay, quick meeting. And then they do this? No. Like they're here the entire time. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, no, they sit there and we're monitoring you. So I, at this point, have had a lot of different things. You can see some of my scars, but I had this thing called a port, right? And the port goes in through right here at the top and then over in my heart, basically. So there was like a tube that went through here that they had to cut and put in here. Normally you get what's called infused drugs or like your IV drip on a pump system, right? Well, when you go through a transplant, it's free fall, meaning they hang the bag, open the tube, and it goes just like you're pouring it out. And so they're like, yeah, it's a kind of uneventful. And they call it your second birthday, right? But you're reborn, right? And you're like, okay. So you're sitting there and this pink bag comes in there. And at the time they took, I want to say it was like 14 million cells from him. And they're going to give me 8 million. And that way they had a backup in case something happened. So they hang it, give me some Benadryl. And they're like, you're going to feel either maybe a metallic or some people don't. You could smell some of it, and and they start pushing it in. And I'm kind of like getting breathing heavy. I'm like, whoa. And they're like, it's totally normal. I'm like, okay. Because like the biggest thing you want to do is you always want to try to stay in focus as far as like, where's your mental game aspect of it. And, try to go from that point. So they start dumping it in the body. And everything's going pretty smoothly. And then they kind of monitor you for 24 hours. And then they take you off some of the special machines that you're on. And then they sit back and watch. And they're watching because in this time period, what happens is all that stem cell, goes in and it goes to your long bones. and it seeps inside your long bones, and it goes, all right, we're in a new body, or whatever. We need to set up a factory. And they go to work, and then they set up this little factory and start spitting out cells. And I'm like, the science behind it is buck wild, right? You know, you try to wrap your head around it, and you're like, I can't.
Now, was there a time post getting that transfusion that you're quote unquote in the clear, or what does that period look like?
No. In fact, post transplant, we're never in the clear, right? We're in the clear after 5 years post transplant is basically what they say. But there's milestones that, you know, kind of increase your mortality,
right,
and your livelihood or longevity, I guess. So, for example, I get the transplant. They're watching. What they're looking for is to see it kick in, right? Oh. Now, in this time period is when the nadir hits from the chemotherapy that I received, right? I didn't eat and drink for like 7 days. So everything was on like an IV drip. And that was another 20 days. 30 days first time, about 23 days. Well, no, I take that back. Yeah, total 23 days. I broke a record and it just got recently broke. So after transplant, I was able to get out of there in 17 days after transplant. Total days I was there was 23 because they were doing chemo prior to. Then I go home, right? And then they're just like, okay, you're getting blood every day. You may or may not go to the infusion center. Like I would get like magnesium, potassium sometimes, but I was done getting blood product. Before, I would have to get some blood, platelets, things like that. This time it looked like my body was doing what, the transplant was kicking in. I got some graft host disease, which was like kind of like some skin thing. So like coolest thing ever, which I'll get to, but like you'll see some redness a little bit. And before I was just like a darker kind of complexion kind of guy. But like there's some things that are his now, right? Yeah. And so and then after the first 100 days, that's where they're looking at acute graft host and then chronic graft host. Like, and I'm very lucky because like didn't really deal with any acute, which is like liver, kidney, stomach functions, nothing crazy.
No immediate issues.
No, nothing crazy. Right. And did well. Oddly enough, in that process is kind of when I started having some stomach issues, but it wasn't nothing related. It was basically timing. My gallbladder decided to like, I'm a pile of shit. It's time to go. And I'm like, well, I can't do surgery right now. I just got a bone marrow transplant. So I came on, a year later. But I was good, right? I got past that 100 days and then I started going good. And then every milestone, every 3 months, I see my doctor. And so example is this last month, I had my 3-month checkup and all my blood cells are doing really well. My bone marrow is 100% his DNA now. My stomach is 70% him, 30% mine. And it's in the transition, right? Skin is about 50-50. So I'm just sitting there like I have a roommate basically around my body.
Who you've never met.
My DNA and his DNA are just like chilling. They're like, hey man, you gonna pick up the tab this week or what?
Right.
So what was the total timeline from diagnosis to post 100 days after transplant?
So we're looking at December of 2023, right, to about September of 2024. And then getting to your full year mark was a big one, right? So that was a big one in April of last year. I got to it. And then next week, it'll be my 2-year post-transplant.
Wow.
So through this process, and I know it's still ongoing, I guess who showed up for you in a way that you'll never forget?
I mean, that list is long. Well, first and foremost, God did. You know what I mean? My faith definitely did. Destiny Church, they were really, really incredible. Some of the people over there did a really nice job in, keeping that prayer chain going for me. Obviously you guys, my friends, your standard, so to speak. Tim Sloan was an incredible dude. He would take me to appointments or he would, every day kind of try to show up. Bassam, you know, he was pretty big with me spiritually and get me where I needed to be, which is cool because it's like a childhood friend. I would say like just Brandon Bochy was a really big impact. You know, he'd stay the night. You know, he's a young coach at Rockland and kind of like ended up being like a friend of mine, but like more of like a family member type. Like, you know, I never had any younger brothers. So it was like, you know, he's like 30. So I looked at it like, it's like a little brother, you know what I mean? Even though we're grown ass adults, but, and just kind of, you know, watching those relationships develop that I've had, but I wasn't sure, like, you know, we would have been there for you just like I'd be there for you. But then there were some other people that just kind of like stepped up, you know what I mean? Right. That just were really good, you know, really good people. There's so many, dude. It's really hard to just like single out anybody.
100%.
But the community did an incredible job for our family.
Yeah.
We had a meal train. I mean, our kids didn't go. I mean, Susan Sloan sent Mikey and Mason with a bag lunch every day for a year.
Wow.
And we just told her, we're good. I'm back now. You know, no, I got it. And you're just like, what? You know, you get to a point too, like where you're like, I said, it was self-doubt. Like, I don't deserve all this, man.
Right.
Like there's some good people. I'm a decent guy, but there's some far better human beings than me. Right. And like, I was, you know, that you self-doubt yourself. Like, I don't think I deserve all this. And I think that's where my, you know, faith in humanity kind of really reignited. Like,
right.
There's some good fucking people out in the world, dude.
Absolutely.
Like you give people a chance. Like people want to naturally, I think, be good people for the most part. Right. And you're like, you know, they need an opportunity. And just as much as you need an opportunity to allow help and like, you know, release some the controls, so to speak, people need an opportunity to, you know, step up. And I was very fortunate, dude. A lot of people did.
Right.
You know, especially because it was like in the community, like, you know, I had coaches all over the place. You know, I was coach at, you know, University of Arizona. At the time, he's now at the University of Portland, Oregon. But he was, you know, calling on me all the time. You know, just you're like, wow, that's crazy. And then I had a connection with the assistant OC at Kansas right now. He was at Nevada. He went through the same thing I did the year before.
Oh, wow.
Or like 3 months ahead of me. So like there's a brotherhood out there. You know, there was a local guy, his wife was a hairdresser. And, you know, I'm still dealing with my stuff. And then he was getting diagnosed and I was able to talk to him and have coffee with him and just chat with him. And he's kicking butt and he's got an amazing mindset on this thing. He's killing it. A guy named Danny White, who's a Rockland guy. He went through it, you know, at the age of 40. And without him, I don't think I would have been. He's like 3 years ahead of me or 2 years ahead of me. I don't know. And, you know, there's another guy named Mark that's 10 years post-transplant, you know, that I confided in a lot with. Without these humans, right? A lot of the stuff that, you know, we had to go through and people still continuously go through with this disease. I mean, it'd be brutal.
Now, did you lean into some of these while you were battling and going through this process? Did you lean into some of these like communities, forums, or people sharing their success stories? Did you happen to lean into any of that during your process?
Well, we have there's a survivor breakfast or picnic, so to speak, that they do every year. Not necessarily like a support group other than individuals that were going through it. I started to lean in a little bit on those kind of folks and the vice versa stuff. But as far as like an actual forum to be on, no. What I did start doing though was NMDP has an organization. It's a worldwide organization that does bone marrow, right? Mm-hmm. And they essentially go around trying to just get people to donate and bring awareness to it. Right. So what I started doing is my platform as a coach, and I'd start going to the college campuses. So you got to be 18 to do it. I would go to the college campuses and I'd speak in front of their players and basically explained to him like what would happen, what was going on, all that kind of stuff. And you're like, dude, this is crazy. You know what I mean? And that's been really cool because talking to kids, and a lot of kids are on these colleges actually that I coached in the past too, right? And they're like, oh, no, coach, man, he went through this kind of stuff. And these other kids are like, what? And I'm like, I'm a numbers guy, and Caucasians have an 80% chance of finding a match. African Americans and Latinos are like 28 and below. Wow. Well, I'm not cool with that, right? I'm like, this should not have any merit on race, ethnicity, or any of that stuff to save lives, right? And so that was my thing. It's like, I want to be an impact. Like,
is that because there's less donors of those races, or?
Yeah. And then you also have mixed cultures too, right? Which is kind of crazy to think about. Like, it's as a Caucasian dude, as much as I look like I might even be Hispanic, I'm not, but as a Caucasian kid, right, saved my life. He was 18 years old. At the time when he did his transplant, he was actually, take that back, he was 22, college kid.
Wow.
So he donated, saved my life, right? And so I'm just showing these kids out there that, like, I want to change the numbers, like, right? Like, especially Latino and African-American community. I'm like, dude, like, I'm not cool with that. You know what I mean? Because, like, the aspect of life now is so, like, different from a perspective of someone that goes through it and then has the disruption, right? And you're like, okay, what's that post-disruption look like? There's a completely different, profound view on life, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
But, and there's a struggle too. There's a struggle where I'm like, okay, I wanted to be better. I wanted, like, okay, I'm going to climb Mount Suribachi, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'm going to be like, I'm going to take after Mother Teresa. There's all these floods of things that want to happen, right? And then you also have to go through your daily challenge of, like, I'm still sick, meaning when I'm just not healthy, right? I'm getting there, but, like I was telling you guys earlier, 2 weeks ago, I got shingles, which is terrible. And that's part of having a compromised immune system. And then just, body's trying to reconnect itself. So T levels are down, and I got to get rid of all this weight and stop being a fat ass and all this kind of stuff, right? So I'm still fighting some other things, but you have a completely different mindset. Like, I want to be a better human,
right?
No matter what I do, right? Whether I've accomplished that, but that's the goal.
Right. And that's funny, because that's like the next question that would be very intriguing to me is, like, how has this, going through the circumstances, changed your view on life and perspective of you? And
well, at the end of the day, nothing else really matters except your family, your love for friends, right? And your health, so to speak.
Right.
Everything else that we consume, or my philosophy is consume, or we strive to be, it's literally replaceable the next generation. It's really gone the next time you look at it. You start to put perspective on, like, what matters in life, so to speak. And I think that's going to be a journey for everybody's individuality and what they think is right and wrong. But at the end of the day, like, again, people grind at their company and their job, right? And they want to be the best they can be, or it's a money aspect, or this and that. Well, I can tell you, like, knocking on Reaper's door, like, there was a moment where, like, didn't know who was going to mow my lawn. I didn't know, if my wife at the moment was going to be able to sell everything off and make sure that she was good, right? I questioned, like, shit, I didn't even do a will, right? Yeah. I didn't do a lot of the things, like, so when you're sitting in that moment, you're like, okay, all the valuables or all the things that you have to get accomplished or do, you quickly realize none of that shit mattered.
Right.
The only thing that mattered in that moment was the look on my kids' faces, my wife, the friends. That's it. I mean, think about that. Like, we hustled so hard for validation, right? On our day-to-day jobs and our day-to-day relationships. And all you have to do is take inventory on what is actually true in that life, which is your family, your friends that you are, because my philosophy is family is friends.
Right.
And if you did things that you need, if you want to change, right, then you have, like, I have a reset where it's like, I'm in overtime. I'm blessed beyond imaginable because I have the chance to change course on something that maybe I didn't really view as at the time as that's not what I want to be.
Right.
But now I get to change the course. There's so many stories where those folks don't get to do that.
Right.
Like endless, right? And so it's a value, and it's a very, very heavy like lesson, because it's almost like I owe it, right, to try to be a better version of myself than I once was because of the second opportunity. Right. Which has some kind of emotional like connection to like just the other day, I'm like, man, on the way here, and literally I'm looking at the blue sky and I'm like, good Lord, I want to be better every day, and I'm still got the shell of some of the old demons that haunted me before, just like anybody else would. So I'm still trying to, get spiritually healed in that way of like, hey, I want to not jump to conclusion and be so brash about someone's way of life.
You mentioned at the beginning that you didn't typically lean on God for help in the day-to-day, right? You just handled it yourself like a lot of us do. Having gone through this now, do you find yourself talking to God more, asking him for help?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, you can't go through what I went through and what other people go through, like with tragedy-wise, and not see the blessings that were provided. And then go back to the initial origin of that conversation that I had, which was, I'm sorry. I should not be coming to you. I'm embarrassed, ashamed that I'm coming to you to ask for help when I'm in the darkest moment of my life, when I should have just came to you in the happiest moment of my life. And to be able to see it, you are human, so you will continue to fall and you will fail. And that's what the design was, right? That's why my belief is that's why he sacrificed for the sins that we create. But the conversation now is the one that I accepted a relationship, and I have a responsibility to that relationship from the origin of that conversation. Just because you saved me now doesn't mean I get to leave you behind.
Right.
And he's still with me, and I still ask for him to help me on some of the mental aspects of what I went through. There's some PTSD that does go with it, like every time you do a blood test, things like that. Or, going through what I'm dealing with, the shingles crap, you're like, whoa, this is going to create a problem. And then you're reminded, no, you're good. Keep going. So, yeah, it's a daily conversation with God. I think my prayers are different. My spiritual journey is much different. I'm trying to be more enlightened in scripture. As much as like I am not a book guy, I'm really fighting with that. You know what I mean? It's like this reading stuff sucks.
Nate Bergazzi says it's just the most words.
The most. It's a combination of like Shakespeare and like, some other book. But I think the biggest thing for people, when they're in that moment that I can offer is, I want to pray that they're spiritual, and I because I want that for everybody, and that goes to my belief of like I want everybody to be saved and one day be with our Creator, right?
Amen.
But at the same time, it also is that when you are in the darkest moments, evil finds a way to lie to you, gives you false hope, or gives you like doubt. Right? Doubt is the biggest evil out there. Doubt in yourself, doubt in the system, doubt in your support group, or doubt in that, good can happen to something that is so bad, right? There, a lot of people think is like, do you wish it never happened to you? And do you know what's crazy? It's like that question, like, do you wish this never happened to you? And I'm like, I don't know if I do.
It's guided you here.
The enlightenment that I've received is extremely valuable, right? To be told, hey, you're dying in 2 weeks. And then to go through like this monumental medical procedures that I did with so many moving pieces and so many stars aligning to be successful, right? Like, I don't think do I wish I didn't have to go through some of the, I had 9 bone marrow biopsies, by the way, it was terrible. Do I wish I didn't have some of that stuff? Yeah. Or the fear of like, how long will I last? Because that's a natural thing.
It's the uncertainty.
Yeah. Of course, that part. But when it comes to like, was I willing to like, not lay on a grenade because there's literally dudes out there doing that for a living, but like, am I willing to feel that so I can express how valuable this time that we have in this, in this timeline is? Yeah. I absolutely. I mean, I go back to it. When I was in the hospital, and my son Mikey has a teammate, and he was a friend of mine. We grew up together with our kids. Rob Durham, he came down the hallway when I was in the hallway, and he was dealing with cancer. This is my son. This is the same community, man. My son's teammate is one of his best friends. One of the kids that I talk to on weekly if I can. And he didn't survive. Cancer got him, and it was like awful.
Yeah, it's tough. You've given a lot of really good words and insight, but if there was one piece of advice you could give someone who may be now sitting in the position you were 2 years ago when you received that diagnosis, what would those words be?
I don't know. It's hard because like there's so much you want to tell somebody in that moment. Breathe. You know what I mean? Breathe with focus, I guess, is a better way. Like, breathe with the focus of focus on what's in front of you. Try not to wander, right? So breathe and focus. I would combine those two. It's like, hey, breathe and focus what's in front of you. Because you can, like I said, you can create some really dark thoughts. You can naturally go down certain roads. So, obviously there's 1,000 other things that go with that, like your faith and all that, pray. But for the mental aspect of it, take a breath, focus on information in front of you, and then let it come at you one at a time, not all at once. Because for me, it came at me all at once. And it does for them too. I'm not saying it won't, but those type things that's definitely where the difference is.
Good. Well, this was definitely a very powerful conversation.
Yeah, dude, I want to start. I don't think you guys even talked.
I think
you have
really
the story. I don't have that perspective. I don't have yours perspective.
Yeah.
I don't have anything relatable. I mean, I got diabetes when I was 17.
Which is real though, dude.
It's something, but to me, it's like your experience because your life had been on a path and you had, you set your goals and you're achieving and you're basically, I don't want to say like being arrogant, but like you're dominating life in all, and then something just kind of comes in and like Colby said in the intro, regardless of anything, it's changing your path. It's like the path changes, like your life will never be quite the same. So, I think it's incredible that you are willing to come share your story with not only us, but anybody who's watching, because I'm sure people will be interested, because not everybody goes through that. We all go through things. Like we all go through things. We all suffer from loss and we all have tough times, but not everybody gets hit with you have 2 weeks to live. Here we are.
Yeah.
Now what? And I think it's just a powerful,
it's the perspectives of like when your life gets disrupted, the biggest thing I could say is like, because there's levels of disruption in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing is like response.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's process and response.
Right.
The faster you process information, allowing yourself to process information,
right,
and it allows you to formulate a response. and be professional in the way you formulate your response. Meaning, do I go negative or do I stay positive?
Right. And I think Colby articulated that in the very beginning. It's like how you attack it or not attack it.
Yeah.
Both are options. Like there's options available, and how you choose to process the information and then take action, however it is, dictates where we're at.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you so much for coming in and sharing it, my man.
It's awesome, dude. I'm glad you guys have this platform, because I think people, you know, as much as this is like a story that obviously, you know, it's for the most part been successful so far, you know, hopefully continues. There's a lot of stories that I know, you know, firsthand of individuals that are going through what I went through that are no longer with me. And it's like, it's just like I said, you know, you have this weight of, I owe it. You know, I think the way I process things too is the more I talked about it, the better I felt about it.
Yeah.
Some of the demons that come with this kind of stuff, you know, if you talk about it, you don't give it any leverage. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, it's facing it head on.
Yeah.
It's acknowledging it and just saying, hey, we're here to fight. I'm not going to avoid it.
All right. I know we kind of addressed it a little bit earlier, but is there anybody you want to shout out and just give an extra thanks to who helped you in your journey? And I know there's a lot probably in there, but.
There is. I mean, I don't want to dump his name out on social media because I don't want him getting, but the young man that donated his bone marrow, an incredible human being for one to take that cell. And he did it just because he was at the campus and he felt like, oh yeah, I can do that, you know? And
did he accept our invite? I know your friends, we all invited, like, we're kick down money and fly him out here and have a beer with him or something.
He's still in the process, I think, of like, you know, being a young kid and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I haven't put the pressure too much on him yet, just because I'm letting him absorb everything. He has no idea that he would, like, what he would come back out to. He'd be like, what?
Do you think he realized like that small decision, seemingly small probably for him at the time, was going to have such a life-changing impact?
I sent him a message, right? And I sent him pictures, right? And to give him like a perspective, like, because of you, I got to walk my daughter down the aisle.
Yeah.
That would tear me apart. Like, I'd be overjoyed if.
Then take my son to college, and
right.
Actually all in the same weekend, by the way, guys. It was like,
I remember.
My daughter graduated Alabama, moved my son into college in Montana, and then my daughter got married a week later. I'm like, what?
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, he's definitely one. And then again, Demelza, my wife, has been incredible.
Yeah, she's always been awesome.
When they talk about out-kicking coverage, bro.
Oh, bro, I was going to call you out on that, but like, bro, like, you out-kicked your coverage so bad with that
like,
one.
So crazy, right? Like, I don't know.
Demelza, you're the best.
Dude. Yeah.
I know we probably should have segued to this earlier, but I remember when you were telling me about this years ago, about the new DNA, you said like actually things like your taste buds and things have changed. Like, what's some of the craziest things that are different?
I was hoping, dude, this kid's got like Goldilocks hair. I was really hoping that shit was going to grow in.
Just grow new hair.
Yeah.
He was like that before the cancer, by the way.
Yeah. I didn't get much, there was a couple things that, like, I don't know, maybe I think our DNA was so tight that it wasn't overwhelmingly nothing crazy, right? I would say that, I used to like certain things maybe a little bit more than I do now, you know what I mean? Like, I like a hamburger, but it's not that crazy like back in the day. I don't know. It's like, I haven't really pinpointed that too much yet.
Okay. So it's not noticeable.
Yeah, no, it's not noticeable enough yet. You know what I mean? But again, I'm still in that transition of like stomach and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, no, it's allergies. I used to have really bad allergies. I don't have as bad as I did back in the day.
It's a win.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
Huge win.
Right.
It's just things like that, dude. It's kind of crazy.
No, well, I appreciate you again coming on, man.
Hey.
Love you, my friend.
I appreciate the taco truck, and thank you guys for having me and telling my story, and look forward to watching you guys more often.
Yeah, thank you. It was a story of gratitude and fighting adversity and overcoming it, and hopefully someone can get something from that. So for those of you who have stayed until the end, this was another episode of Broken Perspective Podcast. As always, we appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next one.